my fear is actually a heat map to my intuition and creativity. If I want to find my intuition and creativity, I first find the fear. I identify the fear. I dialogue with the fear. And as the fear softens, my clarity and intuition is revealed. Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back, dear listeners. And for those who are joining for the first time, welcome. I'm Anna Holtzman. Welcome to the How to Trust Yourself podcast. This episode marks about 10 months since I made a big pivot from the old incarnation of this podcast, which was called From Chronic Pain to Passion, to the new iteration, How to Trust Yourself. And when I made that shift, I knew the podcast was evolving. I just didn't yet know what shape it would take. And over the past 10 months and nearly 50 episodes, the direction has gradually emerged and become clear. This podcast is about visibility. More specifically, it's about how sensitive creatives, coaches, and entrepreneurs can feel safe being seen so they can share their voice, grow their work, and make an impact without frying their nervous system or short-circuiting. So today I want to take you behind the scenes of this transition, the unraveling, the realigning, the re-emerging, the messy spaghetti process of it all, and orient you to where the podcast is heading. And I'll also share how that evolution has led me to create a new coaching experience called Your Story Out Loud, which embodies everything that I've learned about healing the fear of visibility through safe, embodied expression. So I'm really going to pull back the curtain here and just to share with you honestly what these past 10 months have been like. And and to be honest, I'll say it's been a roller coaster. It's been an emotional roller coaster. And I think that is what the growth process often feels like when we are letting our intuition lead us into the unknown, letting our intuition has clarity and it's leading us somewhere, but our cognitive mind does not necessarily know where our intuition is leading us, and fear comes in to cloud the way. So these last 10 months have been full of ups and downs emotionally, of fear and anxiety of the unknown and excitement and just feeling pulled forward by that tingle, that excitement of intuition. When I first pivoted from the chronic pain focus and work that I had been focusing on for the previous 5 years in my coaching, in my work as a therapist as well, when I first pivoted into a new, more expansive direction, I didn't fully know what I was pivoting to. I had a sense, I had definitely a strong sense of it. But it was absolutely not fully formed. I started before I was ready, which, is a lot of what I work on with my clients, is starting before we're ready, because we will never be ready to start. We become ready by starting. And so I started before I was ready. And that process is messy. It's a bunch of feeling intuitive hits and then throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall in the beginning, trying out different things, just speaking into the new direction, speaking into it and clarifying along the way. And a lot of that's been taking place right here on my podcast, me speaking into it on the podcast out loud in front of you all. Those of you who have been following along this whole time, you've been watching that process unfold. And the process has unfolded through doing, through speaking, through writing. And again, for those who've been following along for a while, that a central part of my discovery process is journaling, and specifically dialoguing with my fear through journaling. When stepping into the unknown, a lot of fear comes up for me, and possibly for you too, when you step into the unknown. And fear clouds my clarity and my connection to my intuition. At the same time, fear cannot just be swept aside to then clear the path to intuition. It can't be suppressed. It can't be pushed through. At least that's my experience of it. For me, in order to find the clarity in my experience is actually inside the fear. It's like my fear is a clenched fist and the clarity is inside that fist. So if I want the fist to soften, I can't try to force it open or get rid of it entirely. I need to sit with that fist. I need to offer it support, warmth, curiosity. I need to become a genuine friend to the fear, to sit down on the sofa with it like you would with a friend who's feeling frightened, and just be present with it. Let it know I'm right here. There's no pressure. I've got no agenda except that I care and I'm curious and I'm here and I'm listening. And through that process of dialoguing with the fear begins to soften and unfold and open. And the clarity of intuition is revealed through that process. So interestingly enough, while the fear initially feels like a barrier to clarity, what I've found is that for me, and perhaps you'll relate to this, my fear is actually a heat map to my intuition and creativity. If I want to find my intuition and creativity, I first find the fear. I identify the fear. I dialogue with the fear. And as the fear softens, my clarity and intuition is revealed. And the funny thing about it is that as that clarity gradually was revealing itself to me, and what was emerging for me is that, where my path is leading me toward is this topic, this world of visibility. So much of what I'm thinking about and working through myself personally and talking about and teaching about and coaching about, so much of it is about visibility and working with and through the fear of visibility, that fear of being seen, of being perceived, of being known, heard, moving through that fear so that we can find our voice and share our voice and share with others, make connection with others through our voice through whatever it is that we are here to share. And the funny thing is that as that clarity emerged, that, oh, this is what I'm talking about, it's visibility, I began to recognize that I had been laying out breadcrumbs for myself for years before I landed on like, oh, this is what I'm talking about, visibility. It's funny. In fact, just the other day, I remembered something and I scrolled back through my Instagram feed because I remembered that actually years ago, I had this very intense fear of speaking on video. But I wanted to start making videos on Instagram. And this was back when my focus was completely on chronic pain healing. And I wanted to start making videos on Instagram, to educate and to share my knowledge and my thoughts on chronic pain recovery and all that. And I was so constricted by fear of visibility, of speaking, of being seen and heard. And so I remembered that I had made my very, very first ever video on Instagram about the topic of the fear of speaking. That was what I spoke about. I was so afraid to speak that I decided to make a video where I just talked through my own fear of speaking on video. And when I looked at the date, it was 2021. So this was 4 years ago that I really started speaking out loud about working through the fear of visibility. And in that video, I was talking about how my nervous system perceived speaking, publicly as dangerous. And so I was making this video as a way of offering my nervous system an opportunity to have a first little dip in the water, graded exposure to gradually acclimate my nervous system to visibility, to help it start to form new, more positive, safe feeling associations with visibility. So I was working on this with myself way back in 2021, and probably before that in different ways. And I was sharing it with my audience way before I was ready. I was speaking it into existence. And this is what the process of finding your voice can look like. It's not digging until you find it deep in a hole in your backyard or something. And then, you say, finally, I've found it. And you take it out of the ground and raise up your fist and show it to the world. And it's all sparkly and perfect and shining. No, it doesn't usually work like that. It's more like an iterative process, and it can feel so uncomfortable because it involves speaking it into clarity, letting yourself be seen before you feel clarity about what it is you're even sharing, finding clarity through speaking it out loud, iterating it out loud. And it's that process that has inspired me to create a new coaching experience that I'd love to invite you into. It's called Your Story Out Loud. And it's a reflection of everything that I've learned through this whole process, because finding your voice is not a one-time breakthrough. It's an ongoing practice. You don't find your story first and then share it. You find it by sharing it. Your Story Out Loud, it's a 2-session coaching intensive for sensitive creatives, coaches, and entrepreneurs who are wanting to practice visibility safely and gently, but powerfully. In our time together, we'll find and refine the story that you most want to tell now at this moment in your process. I'll help you regulate your nervous system through the fears that arise. I can certainly relate to them. And we will record together a real conversation that captures your authentic voice. It's both gentle and potent. It's a safe container for transformation. You will leave with clarity, greater confidence, and a recording that reflects you, not the polished performative version, but the grounded, real you. You can find out more about that at annaholtzman.com/yourstory. And I'd love to hear from you if you're curious. And before we close, I just want to say thank you to those of you who've been with me through this messy pivot, through the unraveling, the rebuilding, all the episodes in between. Thank you for trusting me to keep evolving out loud. And to those of you who are new here, welcome. This podcast has always been a conversation about how to trust yourself. But this next chapter is going to be about what that trust makes possible. It's about trusting yourself enough to be seen. And I can't wait to explore this next era of the podcast together with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.